I'm your host, Munson Steed, and welcome to another edition of CEO to CEO. What really makes a CEO tick, how to get insights, how to be aware of what it is that there are opportunity pools and insight is what we're doing here. I'm really proud of this young lady because she has done what many of us forget to do. Find a lane that you can ride out. Find a lane that is really kind of that blue ocean strategy. Crystal, if you will introduce yourself to our audience and just share with where you were when your dream came to you to create Ruby Love.
So I'm Crystal Etienne, and I'm the CEO and founder of Ruby Love. And I wouldn't call it a dream, but I just had like an epitome one day that I wasn't a person who really wore like tampons and wanted to insert foreign objects into my body. And one day my pad was just like sticking out, looking ugly. Like I was just home. I literally was just home watching TV. And that's when it just hit me that like, I just need to fix this because it's been going on too long. It's something that we deal with every month. And I just wanted to do something about it. And that right there, from that moment to now, I've just been rolling with it. Looking at different technologies, trying to fix it, improve it as much as I can. That was the start of it in 2015, September of 2015.
So, it wasn't a dream, it was an epiphany. Tomato for all of you out there. There is she's being very kind, but her success and why I'm proud of her is for many of us, we don't solve a problem. CEOs and the best ideas solve problems. What did you see as the problem, and why is it connecting with so many women on so many levels?
The problem that I saw that day up until now is that people that were like me who could not, I had PCOS. So I would get my period probably like once or twice a year. But when it came, it was like for like 30 days straight. So for people like myself, it's very hard to use a tampon or a cup because my body would just reject it. So what I saw was a problem, just the problem that I wanted to solve, something to make me feel comfortable, something that I'll never take away the stigma of like periods suck or like your menstrual cycle is an issue. It's going to come every month. So the problem that I wanted to solve was to be able to still go about my day and still do anything that I wanted to do anytime I wanted. And that's the problem that I wanted to solve. And that's what we have done, like with the products that we sell now. That was the problem. And then I have just taken that problem and just expanded it into for other people. But it really is still the same problem from that day.
You know, when you think about problem solving as a CEO and you were what were your first steps? I mean, literally, it was you, then what next?
So I had no design background, nothing. I was a controller and I had a business background. So I know how to run a business. But starting from being like a fashion company, I didn't know it was a fashion company, a feminine hygiene company. I had none of that. I had no marketing. I had no sales background, none of that at all. So what I did was first thing that I did was I drew out what I thought would help me like with my problem, like which is our patent pending technology right now. Like I drew the picture of what I wanted it to look like. And then I just set out to find someone to make like prototypes. I didn't know at the time it was going to be prototypes. I thought I was making like a product. So I was making the product and I really just researched and called on the phone to find people like to make it. I'm in New York. So it was kind of easy for me to go to the city. I walked up and down the blocks, like using my phone. And I finally found like 4 different factories like to make it for me. I wanted 4 different people to make it so that I can get a sense of which one would be better in that way. There was one that I actually sat at every single day, like until they actually made it. But it wasn't easy to get them make it like for the first week because they thought it was a joke. Like if you're telling somebody, you want to make a hole in the underwear, they were looking at me like I was crazy, but I offered them money and told them I'll pay for it. So they made it for me. And then I just went from there.
You know, when you think about the idea of making a prototype and your vision is inside your mind, what does that emotion feel like? Just like for everybody, I got it, I got it, I got it, and everybody else can't see it but you.
It feels good until you start drawing it and realize you're not a an artist. And then you have to explain like you're non-art to someone, but the feeling itself is like phenomenal. It feels really good.
So you're there, you've got a prototype, you have no experience, but you know, the two things that I say about entrepreneurs, and I see it in your eyes, just like I see it when you said I'm there, you're ready to boss your idea. Like, you
Yeah.
know, when you have an idea, you got to boss that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't hold back. You got to boss the idea. Like, everybody, if I'm paying you, you're working on this idea.
Yes.
For all the people that are watching, what does that mean? Boss your idea to life.
Oh, that's a simple one. I think that a lot of people are scared to have people do stuff or to like so that you found, so that you don't sound stupid. I wasn't afraid of that. And I think that if anyone needs to boss their idea, you need to own it. Like just like I said, like I drew a picture, I made a underwear. Like my first thing was an underwear with a hole in it. Like how crazy does that sound? And like I said, they were giving me like the runaround, but I'm like, listen, this is what I need. This is the money. Just tell me how much it is to make it. And I paid all different prices to all four people, from $150 to $750 for the same thing. And I just did it. So to boss your idea to me is to really like own what it is and to not be afraid to ask stupid questions, not to be afraid to make mistakes, and not to be afraid to say, oh, that didn't work, and to really like own like what it is. But I think that comes like more like with someone's personality. If you're scared, like in the back, if I would have just been like, oh, okay, you're not gonna make it, and just like left and like felt down and got back on the railroad and came home, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. But I really stood my ground and really like pretended to know what I was talking about back then. And I got it done. Because I think that's what forcing your idea is, like really believing in what you're doing at that moment or what you're building, and not making other people believe it at the moment, like when you're first starting, but just knowing that what you're doing, if you feel like you're really solving a problem, there should be no questions asked. And there was no question to me. Like my husband is one who told me to like go back to work. He didn't believe in my hole in the underwear, but at the time, like I believed in it and I kept going with it. So I think that's what bossing your idea is.
You know, it's funny you should say that, but I think for most of us brothers, we are truly remiss because we don't have periods. I mean, I will remember the first time I spoke to the another CEO, and she has a feminine product, and she said, "I'm on everything vagina." You know, to some brothers that was uncomfortable, and but I'm like, you know, I had to go bypass for my mom. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if y'all are ashamed about the life, the miracle, the love that we get, you could play it down. But I am so proud of you guys because it is really solving a problem, and we all need to recognize that somebody's vision is not yours. So
Exactly.
really commenting versus supporting, and the people we love, it's more difficult for them to see us in a new light. Like you're in a new light. You are a boss now. It's not somebody else's, it's yours, and it's validated. How's that feel?
So it feels good. It feels good to know that I'm helping other people. Once I found out that there were millions of people like myself, so it feels absolutely really good to know that I'm helping a lot of people, especially like our customer base are moms with teen and tweens. Like just imagine that feeling, like when every day we get emails from customers that say that we basically saved their daughter's life because they're going to camp, or was pulled for a 9-year-old, or they're on vacation and they could go to the beach now. Like just imagine that feeling. Like it's a great, phenomenal feeling. Like it's something that no one can take away from anyone at all.
You say it, but I think it's compassion. Like this is a compassionate product that will have worldwide impacts as women continue to elevate, and the solution that I admire is that it's one that gives women the courage, because otherwise you got to suffer. And that is not cool. Otherwise, there's a level of shame that literally follows from staining the clothes to not being able to go in the beach to really having to explain, excuse yourself, and the confidence that you're able to give to someone. What's that feel like when you read your first letter and someone said that you had supported a change in their life?
Yeah, so for the first 6 months, I've ran the company myself. So I used to speak to customers day in, day out, like how I learned my audience. And the first time that I ever got, I remember the person. It was a mother from Canada, and her daughter was leaving with her husband to go like out of the country. And she literally paid like $300 just for one swim bottom, like just for shipping, like to get it to her daughter. And it was like the best feeling in the world, like to really know that you were helping this one person who felt like she was going to be, like she couldn't help her daughter at that moment. And, but she was giving her like this swim bottom, like to save her daughter's life. It's a phenomenal feeling.
When you say save someone's life, I think the vision and the true boss in your idea comes from moving past the clutter of a society who has eliminated the value that women have every month to the entire world. No periods, no people. No periods, no people. Like literally, you have ignored us this long, and with no periods, no people.
Yes, I tell people that all the time. I say it a different way, but that's a good one.
Don't you use that without giving your brother credit. Like my brother said, you just tell my brother said, no period, no people. And literally you really have to think about women that haven't found you, that are suffering in silence, women that are literally either, you know, trying to figure out what you figured out. But after trial and error, and you got your first product in your hand, what'd you say?
So I started selling the first products, and first sales started happening in January of 2016. That's when the website went live, like with like a real website, I would say, like went live. So having the product, I had a bunch of it. So I was in the process of it for like 3, 4 months, like getting everything together, correcting like the angle, the technology, everything that was in it. But that first sale is like it's like the best feeling ever. And I did it with no advertising. Like someone just found me. I still don't know how to this day. I probably really need to go all the way back and probably contact the person or something. But they purchased, and then it just kept coming in like over time. So the first sale and the like having that first product, like to be able to ship out is it's an amazing feeling. And even like shipping, like it's just like shipping your stuff, something that you created, something that you made and built, and shipping that to someone, and actually knowing that someone is going to use a product that you created for yourself in reality to solve a problem. It's good. It's a good feeling.
But for CEOs, part of that language is trust. So you wanted to create something that someone could put their trust in, because clearly there are lots of products that say they're going to help, and ultimately you knew that they needed to be able to trust you. What does the word trust means for you as a CEO? Because women are depending on you.
Yeah, so especially with our audience, which are moms with teen and tweens, they're purchasing for their, for their pride and joy. Like I'm a mom, so I understand like where that comes from. So the trust factor in any company with any product, whether no matter what the product is supposed to do for you, is a big thing. Like once they have the product in hand, and that is it means a lot. It means a lot. It kind of lets you know who your customers are and who they are not. And that's what we know like immediately. But we know our customer base. So like the trust factor, we know like exactly like how we need to explain to them like how to use the product. And we also know, like I said, we're dealing with like more like a love deal where the mother is buying it for, or the parent rather, is buying it for her daughter. So that's like a love deal. Like, whereas it's like double trust, because now the parent has to trust us in order to, have their young 9-year-old go scurry off on the beach with period swimwear. So it means a lot. Like I said, those emails that come in afterwards and things that we see, we pride ourselves more on those, on the positive, and don't lean more on the negative, because we understand that not every customer is our customer, but our customers who really are truly our customer, they love us. And like, we get emails from them all day long to just say like that. They're pretty much saying that they trust us when they say like what we did for them.
The idea, I was getting back to that love agreement that you have, because I really look and was proud as I spent time just getting to know the story, which I think in the category, I'm so proud of you to just have your own category, create your own lane. And I encourage all those entrepreneurs that are out there to study. Like, instead of just going in business, take the time to study Crystal, to study the idea, to study her website. And one of the most touching things that I found is in the naming of your company.
Yes.
That there is love in the name of your company. And I found that so moving, that it looked like there was a mission statement in the
Yep.
whole naming of your company. Can you explain how your brand architecture came together?
Yeah. So when we first originally launched in 2016, the name was Panty Prop. I made up that name because it was basically a prop for your panty. Knowing, fast forwarding to 2019, realizing like, wait a minute, I have like that. I think the epitome came last year, like when I realized like, oh, wait a minute, like we have these millions of customers. It's a multi-million-dollar company at this point. Like, I need to change the name, because the word panty and just that name cannot be like a global company. And the word panty is offensive in a lot of countries. So when I started embarking that I had to rebrand the name, I started thinking about like over the years, like of what the company really truly stood for, and like why I had to go back to that day, like how you asked me, like why I really started the company. And so I came upon Ruby Love. Like, it was group effort. It was going to be Love Ruby, but we decided on Ruby Love. Ruby, for obvious reasons, we wanted to, really like be bold in your face, like with the red. Like, a period has different types of reds, and that's why you'll see, like, we don't just use one. So Ruby obviously is a classic jewel, which is, I feel, your period is a classic jewel. Like, it creates life. Like, without it, like you said, period, we just had period for the people. So
no period, no people. At the end of the day, it's insulting for society to not spend a lot more focus on women, their menstrual cycle, young girls, and conversation. But let's get back to your story.
Yeah. So just think about like how you said, for that, like a ruby is a classic. It's a classic jewel. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful red. Like, who doesn't like a ruby? There's like probably like 1% of the world that doesn't like a beautiful ruby.
Right.
So that was a no-brainer. Like, with the word ruby and the name ruby, like what it symbolizes and what it means. And then the love came from just the love of where I started with the concept, the love of myself, the love of my daughter, and then the love of that we've been hearing for so many years from our customers. We wanted to give that love back. So we chose the word Ruby Love. That's exactly, really, truly like where it came from.
Well, I love it. I wouldn't expect any less, but there takes courage to pivot, to know that it's time for a rebranding. You weren't 20 years old. No. You're not Aunt Your Mama, so you didn't offend anybody, but you recognize that it could be offensive someplace in the world where people don't have the same appreciation yet for women, yet for the discussion of menstruation, and all of a sudden you decided to pivot. What inside you made you pivot? How did you have the courage? And then what do you say to other entrepreneurs as they, what I consider, stay in constant reevaluation of where you are?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. So we're always fixing and correcting and things like that. So the thought of pivoting was when I realized, like I said, we were already a multi-million dollar company. So I still was like feeling like I was like a small little brand. Everyone would say it to me all the time because, like I said, I don't, if you look around, like I really don't do many things. Like I say, the company stays very on a low key. People find us. Um, we didn't even advertise until May of 2018. It was just more of word of mouth of one mom, one parent, one dad, one grandma telling another person about the product and looking for other information from us. So pivoting was when I realized, like, I have all of these people who found us and what we've given back. Like I felt the need that I need to help other people. And that's where the pivot came from, where it was like, okay, like where now we need to really start advertising, like to really like bring in, like my competitors have done it for years, like, but we've never did any of that stuff. We've never used any influencers. We've never even paid before May of 2018, never even paid for any digital marketing at all, not $1. And we made it to be like a multi-million dollar company that way. So I pretty much bootstrapped the company until 2019. And pivoting was just, it just was like that need, like that we can do this and help more people, because there still are no solutions out there for like teens and tweens, like the way that we do it, like there just isn't. And we realized like that now we had like there was a mission now that I had to do it.
But there's a mindset, and I'm really working through this. I'm playing, and I do long pauses. I'm really being a therapist for somebody who's genius. Literally, this is your brand architecture. But there's a reason why, and I'm gonna go back to even when you share with me, you're a comptroller.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a comptroller, you're watching the books, you're reevaluating, you're adding things up. In your mind, you had to be adding things up at that moment when you decided to pivot. Because I see it in your eyes. You're like, it's something else. Other people, why should they reevaluate themselves? I mean, for you, obviously it's the brand, but for somebody else who doesn't get it, they may not go back and reassess
Mm-hmm.
and understand that a comptroller is there to assess where you are, forecast where you're getting ready to go. But you have this as a mindset. Why is it important as a CEO to have reevaluation, checking out your resources,
Yep.
forecasting? Why must they do these things?
Well, for me, since I know that stuff is important, it was scary, like paying the first advertising or anything like that, like putting money out there that we haven't, like expenses that you never could imagine, like going from like 3 employees to 43 employees is a lot. Like that's a totally different payroll expense all in itself. But I think that the reevaluation, you should always go back and reevaluate everything, because you don't have to do everything so fast. You don't need to pay $1,000 for a logo. So it is a mindset like of spending on the things that you really truly need, like so that you can accomplish your mission. So reevaluating always brings you back to your original mission of what you were trying to do, and it puts you in reality. So it definitely is a mindset that people need to be in. And you have to, sometimes your mindset will take you completely different places that you don't belong. And you need to like reel yourself back to say, like, this is what's important. And this is the road that I'm going to take.
So another one of my R's is resources. You evaluated the resources that you had, and you've decided, how do you do and evaluate your resources now? You're a different company, you've grown, but you have a new vision. How do you, and when I say resources, I'm talking about all the different resources that you have, friends, attorneys, the whole works. How important is it to really look at your resources?
Yeah, so I actually created my resources. I had no network before I started the company. I had absolutely nothing. So now I do have that, the resources that I have. And it's very important, like to make sure that you have the, I would say not even the resources, the right foundation. If you have the right foundation, when you go back to reevaluate your mindset, it will put you right back on track, like the correct way. So when you feel something is not right, don't do it until you fully understand like what you're doing or how you're going to do it and why you're doing it. And that's what I do all the time. I do that every day with things. Like it doesn't stop. It might be something that I would say, or say like my CCO or something wants to do, or my marketing team wants to do. And it sounds good because every time somebody paints a picture, it sounds wonderful. But then once you take yourself back, or I'm in my car thinking about it, I'm like, oh no, maybe like right now is not the right time to do it. And I think also this year, I think the pandemic probably showed us that like so many things that we thought was so important is really not necessary. But I've always been like that, like to always bring myself back. It's not, you just can't make like those sudden decisions that way. You know, when it, especially when so many people's livelihood is on the line.
You can say that two more times because most people don't understand that as a CEO, you no longer are just thinking of yourself.
No, it's totally different from that day when I came up with the idea, when it was just me for 6 months. I have like 40 people that I am responsible for. I'm basically responsible for paying their bills, their mortgages, their rents, and smart decisions are completely important at this moment. So you just can't like make us, or it's a different type of feeling. Like it's you start, once you start doing it, you like, oh wait, oh Lord, but you can't like give up at that moment, and you have to make it, you have to make it through, and you have to make it right. Because there's so many people dependent on you, not only just your customers, it's your employees that are depending on you too, your vendors, your, like you said, your network. And just in general, there's so many things that come into being a CEO that most people just want the title, but it's a big responsibility that a lot of people do not talk about at all.
So thinking about that, and you now are in a position, research. You when you started, what level of research did you understand? Now, as a CEO, how do you continue to research? So, how important is it? What'd you do to kind of get out the box, and how do you find yourself researching right now?
So I research the same way. I research like a dummy. I do everything the same exact way. If I don't know something, or if I think I know it, or if I know a little part of it, I just go right back to the beginning. So you know that book where the book for dummies? That's how I research. I'm not afraid to say that I don't know or to understand more, because I think that's how I got to the point that I am now. Because like I said, I didn't have any marketing or anything like that. It's just basically not being afraid to say that you don't know, even to yourself. Like sometimes it's hard to yourself to even say, like, I don't understand that. Most people want to act like they understand and they know, and I don't do that. So I still research like a dummy. The book for dummies, that's what I look for. And I'll just start from the beginning, and it will take you down a path where you will start to learn. I say it all the time, like my mentors, I didn't have no mentors. My mentors were online, like people that I looked up to. I would read all their articles, find another mentor. There's so much stuff that's on the internet these days that you could find. You got to weed out the stuff that is not like someone just trying to get, impressions or something else like that. But you have to weed out what is best for you. And that's what I use and learned almost everything that I know to get me to the point where I am now once I started the company.
Yeah, that's pretty inspirational. But even when you say for dummies, most people don't want to acknowledge that they don't know.
Hmm.
And then they begin to pay.
I agree. I have no problem saying I don't know.
And I guess the thing that I'm sharing is after that, now that you're there, research and development, that plays a role in what you
Yep.
do today.
Yes, that does. So as far as like research and development, when it comes to data and in that way, I say hire people that know more than what you do. Most people say that. And once you start having so many responsibilities and so many things and people that you're responsible for, you'll realize like why that is really, truly important. And they don't even know everything either. But people who know particular topics much better will perform much better and you will perform much better because now it makes it much easier to do the research and development and look at data and things like that. So that is very important.
I admire that in you saying that because when you're a CEO, people expect you to act like you know everything, and yet you're in that moment where you're gonna say, "Hey, I don't know, and I really need to validate what you're saying."
Yes. So absolutely. Even like some of my employees, I have to tell them sometimes, like, I don't know. I have no idea, but we can find out. So when you're a CEO, it's just a title. Like it really is just a title. And it's like one of the best titles to have, but it comes with a lot of pressure. And then I also have the founder plus CEO title. So it's even more like added pressure, but you can't be afraid to say to yourself, like, I don't know. You can't pretend, and pretenders can't pretend too long. So if you're pretending, your pretending is going to come to an end. So you're going to have to figure out something in the interim. And if you're not a person that can acknowledge that, you're not going to succeed at all. You have to say, like, no one knows everything.
Yeah, I've found that for a CEO of your caliber, true visionary, which I know you don't see yourself that way, but I do, in understanding that you wanted to bring something to market. So, how did you research your marketplace?
So that was me speaking to customers all day long, figuring out a way, like with no marketing budget, how to even figure out a customer. So that was all in the beginning days. And that was speaking to my customers all day long. And that's how I know everyone here that works for me knows, I know like who our customer is because we speak to them. Our customer says the same, like I can tell you what my customer is doing right at this moment. I can tell you as soon as if one of my customer service person picks up a phone, if they answer an email, if they open it, like what the person is going to say before someone makes a sale. It's speaking to your customer and not being afraid to know who your audience is. And I get that a lot. A lot of people ask me all the time, like, how do you speak to your customer? Like, I don't know, what do you mean by that? And it really is, it means it's no secret. It means speak to your customer. Like in the beginning days, I set up a chat. There's email. You can hear in the tone of voice, like who your customer is, like your main customer, because there's different customers too. Your main customer or who your audience is, you have to speak to your customer in whichever form that is.
So, when you began as a female entrepreneur and CEO, now you're a role model for so many other women. What have you found that inspires you as you and other women lead? Because this is the moment. It's difficult for brothers to accept the fact that women started Black Lives Matter. Like, step back. Like, step
Mm-hmm.
back. Now we've got a woman running a multi-million-dollar business. So clearly, that's a real significance. How have other women responded to you?
So I get a lot of inbound, mainly because of because I am a Black woman and because like I bootstrapped my company to over $10 million. I've raised a fund. So I get a lot of inbound from women who are like starting off, who was me like a few years ago. I speak to them all the time, the ones that I see that are serious and that really can like use a push. But I feel like the moment, like to address your question of the moment for Black women, I think it's always been our moment. I think that we don't ask for handouts because we don't want handouts. I think we just really want to be able to have the opportunity. And once people open up that opportunity, I think that Black women will be far superior than anyone. I know you're a man, a Black man, but I'm just letting you know that Black
Oh,
women,
you let me know.
yeah,
I'm not that. My ego and pride, and like I said, I had a mother. So when people like are talking, we need each other. I'm the last guy. I'm just as happy. You say, Munson, I'm inviting you to the awards. I'm like, I'm not sitting there thinking that has to be me. I mean, I think
right.
that's the mindset. You know, if a sister can't believe in herself and tell you, brother, it's about her, it's a problem.
Yes. And I think that once that happens, once those floodgates open, I think that Black women are going to end up to be the superior out of everyone. And it's just, I feel like, because I've been, obviously, because Black women have been trending lately. So I get a lot of inbound stuff for that too. That half of it I just ignore because I feel like you're a part of the problem. Why you're even contacting me now, that you didn't contact me 6 months later. I get a lot of stupid questions about how it feels to be a Black woman. Like, it's like the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, I feel like a Black woman. That's what I feel like. So I get a lot of that, especially now. And I feel like at this moment, I think it will trickle off, but I think Black women have finally found a way to show, like, if you just open up the door, because you have the power, like, we don't have the power right now. So if you let go of some of your power, which letting go of power is a big problem with anyone, if you let go of some of your power, you're afraid I'm going to come in and I'm going to take over. But once that door is open, I think that Black women are going to be the superior. Like, the way we think, the way we move, our mindset, and just the way that we think about ourselves is far superior, I think, than anyone else in the world. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Black woman. I would say it even if I was a white woman. I just wouldn't want to admit it because I wouldn't want to lose my power. But I think white women know too.
Well, I think that not only is it a threatening thing, because they also know the resilience, the fact that they have the power of vision,
Yep.
which oftentimes they say, well, why don't you want us to have access? I say it's a reason they don't want a young brother. I was talking to a young brother and he was saying how his mother, how he was poor, and he got all the way through Juilliard. And so I had to correct him. I said, no, you're not poor because your
Mm-hmm.
mother poured something into you. I said, you're in a 2-bedroom house in New York and it was 5 of you and your mother got you through Juilliard. And you lived, right now, you're alive. But the society would want you to see yourself as poor. I said, that's what they sold you. So never repeat again that you were poor. Because that was society's choice. They could have chosen to send you to the best elementary school. They just decided that that wasn't going to happen for Black people. We can't even begin to see, if you're oppressed for 400 years, how great we could have been with an even playing field.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So come on, greatness, come on. Come
And
on,
that's
with
all that's needed. It's just an even playing field. And then we'll see who actually is the superior.
Yeah, and access to capital. How do you feel in growing? And obviously, past 10 million starts to get attention. We've seen with Shea Moisture and that kind of sell. Do we imagine that one of the huge companies will come and just swoop you up and make it? Because it appears to be $1 billion business.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it truly is a visionary business. What's your dream?
My dream is just that, like, there will come a point where years from now, whether it's 5 years, 10 years from now, like, where, like, how we were just talking about power and, superior, there will come a point where I can only take it but so far. But my mission is still the same from day one. I want to protect these young teen and tweens, people who are not able to insert foreign objects into their body, people who cannot wear tampons, people who have fibroids, medical issues. My mission is still the same. But there are companies out there, like how you said, like with the Shea Moisture example, there are companies out there that can really like take that original mission that I had and really put it in the hands of the world. I can do it to the world, but they can really do it to the world.
Well, I mean, but what our community, and we're talking about anybody tuning in to CEO to CEO, and we are clearly talking to the CEO, Ruby Love, is the globalization of an idea is very dependent on you not having to open up a factory in Africa because the company already has a factory in Africa. They already have a sales force around the world. And I think that that's what we often miss when somebody says, why'd they do that? Well,
Mhm.
you don't want to go open a factory if somebody already got one.
So I explain it to people like this, especially like some of the Black women that come to me, that look up to me and they come to me. I tell them that you're not trying to build a business, you're trying to build wealth. And that is the difference. When you're trying to build a business, you can have a mom and pop, something you want to pass down to your kids. I'm trying to build wealth, and I'm trying to build long wealth. So that who wants their kids to work hard? Like, yeah, I want my daughter to work hard right now, my son, but do I really want them to bust their behind their whole entire life? No. So there's a difference in that mindset of like you have to realize like the ending goal of what you want to do.
Well, you've said it nicely, but I think, and just so that you know, there was a foul on that play because you used the word that is unaccepted at CEO to CEO because you're talking to your brother, Munson. You're not trying. There is nothing that you try. You are a doer. As a CEO, you do not get to try to make payroll.
No.
You do not get to try to make payroll. And I'm teasing you, but I want our community to understand there is no trying to be a CEO. Once you are in that seat and you got to sign the front of them checks, it's a whole different mantra.
Yes.
And I love that. I think the other thing about wealth is understanding that the network and international networks, globalization of an idea that solves problems for billions of people. That's what I see when I see Ruby Love. Something that is providing a solution for a billion women.
Absolutely. And I think we saw that also with Carol's daughter, like where everyone said she was a sellout. I didn't see it as a sellout. I saw that she put it in the hands of someone who could get it to more people to help with her original mission.
I'm not worried about what other people say. As a
Oh
CEO,
yeah.
if you listen to all, everybody could evaluate, but they can't do the deal. Just replace the offer. That's what I tell people in that deal. Just replace the offer. If you do all that talking, just replace the offer, and then we hear you.
Exactly.
Just replace the offer. Find the other find. Do whatever you got to do, but don't judge. I think we do a lot of that versus evaluate, reevaluate, apply what works for you, and then run down that road. So, tips for young CEOs who are really just starting. What is the financial insight that you could give to them about budgeting and moving their companies forward over the first 2 to 3 years?
The first 2 to 3 years, I would say, do not spend on frivolous things that really are not necessary. There'll be so many people who are going to tell you, you need this, you need to do this, you need to hire this person, you need to get someone and pay them $200,000 salary. I say, don't listen to all of that. And you know your company best. You know what your company needs. And I think that you need to listen to yourself to know like what you need. Only spend on what is going to get you at the next step. When you get to the next step, then you spend on that next step of what's going to get you there. So as far as financial and budgeting, that is the most important because I see so many people that come to me. I have people who ask me, like I said, about logos, and they're like, "Oh, should I spend $1,000?" And I'm like, "No, like you don't even have like a viable product yet. You don't even have branding. Like, no, like that is so unnecessary. Like that $1,000 that would be spent on a logo or $500. I used to look at that as Like I said, my company started off as Panty Prop. I paid like $5 for my logo. Someone offered me one for like $750. That $750 was inventory to me because I knew that I don't have a company unless I have inventory. And that's what was most important. So as far as that goes, just only spend on what is absolutely necessary.
I love it. So, if you were giving a speech at Spelman to all the young Spelmanites and Howardites and FAMUs and Fisk, and you were going to tell this next generation about business, what type of business and what would be the title of your speech that you would direct them in?
My title of my speech for business, these are entrepreneurs because it's just different.
These are all just college graduates getting ready to enter the world, and you're giving
Okay.
them a speech. Obviously, we want them to think about owning businesses because I think our community, in order to have wealth, you got to buy and sell of something. But I got you.
But career people. So
Yeah.
they're about to, I would tell them to, my favorite quote is, you cannot have a $1 billion mindset with a minimum wage mindset. Like you just can't. So you have to really think for the long run and not for now. So everything that's in between there, you need to figure out how to get there. Like I have a daughter who's a millennial, and I tell her this all the time. Like you're not gonna just graduate. She's graduated last year, about to get a master's, about to go in law school, and you're not gonna just end out of law school with this big, huge job that you're thinking. There's all that in between, but the vision of that ending goal is the most important because that's what you do in between, and it doesn't get you flurried in your mind with stuff that is not important. I give that speech almost every week to my daughter. So that would be my speech. That would really truly be my speech.
You are so nonsensical about that. Keep it simple. You're gonna get some inspiration along the way, but get the skill set. Get the
Yeah.
skill set. Get the job done.
Yes. And really do what you have to do for that big vision.
Yeah. So, how did being a comptroller really provide you with some insight on who you are today?
Um, it just it taught me the fundamentals of, I can say that in that position, it taught me how to deal with people. Like whereas some people will, I have the problem here. So what it taught me was, like, I'm the CEO. Sometimes people will come in into our corporate office in our warehouse, and they don't think I'm the CEO. They're looking for Crystal. I just think it's funny. So what that has taught me is not to do that because who you think people are, they're not. Like you might see someone all suited up, someone just completely suited up with hair done wonderfully, and that person is living in a car. You just don't know who people are. You have to get to know people, and when I say get to know people, you really need to get to know like the mindset. Like how we keep going to mindset, but the mindset is the most important. You really need to know the mindset of that person because people lie all the time about like how they are, but you can't lie about your mindset. Like it comes out.
Technology, as we come to a close, I don't want to take any more than an hour that you shared, which I appreciate this. How have you leveraged and integrated technology into your business?
Yes. So we still are doing that. Like I said, we're always doing that. And it's a struggle because it costs. So again, you have to look at, I do it every day. I get emails a million times a day about things that just sound great. I'm sure you probably get them too, with people emailing you like, oh, wow, this will be great. And everything sounds great, but you have to really look at technology, other things that really can be done. And at the level that we are at now, something that I'm trying to implement now and trying to like going through the research now, like to figure out what's best. I didn't need it 2 years ago. I would love to have it 2 years ago, but I really didn't need it 2 years ago. So it would have been a waste of money. But now I do need that particular technology. So I think that using softwares and technologies and algorithms and, APIs and things like that, I think is very important, that you use what is for the stage that you are at the moment, so things don't come crumbling down.
Finance, developing a relationship with your banks and suppliers. How do you recommend other CEOs approach that? Those who are budding bosses, how should they approach building their business and building their banking relationships?
So that goes back to trust. You can't imagine to go into a bank and expect them to just give you a $5 million loan when they don't know you. You can't expect to walk into a room and ask investors to give you $20 million when you're not going to show them how to make money. So you have to paint the vision, trust, and you have to also know how to prove that you can do it, and proving it in a way like where you're not convincing someone that it is. It's building up that relationship with somebody, like so that they know that in the interim and in the end, that this is what's going to happen. And it might not happen because everything is a projection. Everyone wants to be a unicorn, but unicorns are not real. But a unicorn is a vision. And you just have to build up that relationship and to become a unicorn. And that's in any relationship that you just meet. Like the people that you name, like that you deal with, in that sense, they're not your family. Your family is going to tell you all types of things. Your family will lend you $5 and you don't got to give it back. Like, people you don't know are not just giving you $5 and you don't have to give it back. You got to give it back in some type of form.
So you say it like people get it, but they probably don't. That means paperwork has to be in order. That means you have to have a relationship with your accountant. What other relationships have you found priceless as you've grown your business?
Company counsel. That's important. That's like number one. Everything falls on that, just in case something goes wrong. You gotta have a good relationship with your company counsel. You gotta find a good one. Banking, like you said, is very important, so that if something goes wrong, your problem is fixed, because money keeps a company going. Like, I don't care what anybody says, money keeps a company going. So if that's not right, then you need to be able to lean on the shoulder of the banker, investor, or anyone that you built that relationship with. So it's very important, and it's not something that comes overnight. That's what people don't realize. Like I said, like it's me and you both know, like that's not something that comes overnight. It's something that you have to build up. Whereas the two people get to that point. Whereas if you call them up and you need something, it's like, sure, it's a few other questions, but more than likely it's going to go through, and you're going to get through that trouble that you have at that moment.
So last question in just understanding data, the role that data plays for you today, and the role that you saw as data was coming in, obviously as a person answering the phone. How do you use and how does data play a role in your success?
So I weigh data with real life and data. I'm not a full data person. There are people who are full data people, and I can argue with them for days. I'm like both. I like real life and data. Because sometimes data goes wrong, but I utilized both of them. Like how you said, like in the beginning, I learned who the customer base is, which has helped me build a $25 million company, because that data of real life of speaking to the customer all the time helped to learn who that customer was. So it was able to make better decisions on colors that we need to, bring in. We knew that it was a mom that was purchasing for her daughter. So we don't have any sexy swimsuits. So imagine if I didn't use that data that I had of speaking to real people and just went out and brought a bunch of sexy swimsuits. Or say if we know that the mom also buys for herself, if we just had a bunch of polka dots. Like you use the data like to get you to where you need to understand, but I'm also a person for real life.
That's important. I mean, that's a great insight because many people will just go on data and then just lose,
Yep.
even though other data, real data that people are saying, but I don't see that.
Yeah, you have to have a mix between the two. Like you really truly have to have the mix with both things in order to really understand the data. Data is good, but I still think that you still need to have real life.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, because I am just totally impressed. I really love your mindset of bossing an idea to life, and obviously, no period, no life. And it's a beautiful thing in terms of providing a global solution for women around the world with Ruby Love. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me with CEO to CEO.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No, it was wonderful. So I will reach back, send you an email, but because we didn't get a chance to talk, but you did a wonderful job. That was
Thank
so
you.
beautiful insight. Um, I say $1 billion, you sell at what? Quarter billion, half a billion.
I hope.
That's gonna happen. It's got to be a 10 multiple. Otherwise, you can ride it out. You know,
Yep.
bidding war. I mean, that's it. So
No, being a CEO is hard. When I do, I'll email you. Let you know.
all right. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
I will reach out for you August 26th. Thank you.
Okay.